All right, so now that everyone has had a chance to settle in, we can go ahead and get started. So welcome everyone to NYU Stern. My name is Lauren Gregotis, and I work on the admissions committee for the MS in Business Analytics and AI program. We have a very exciting presentation planned for you today. I'm joined by our academic director, Professor Anindya Ghose, who is going to be sharing directly with you all some information about the program and some really great information about the program's curriculum as well. So what to expect as a student as you're going through this journey in the MS in Business Analytics and AI program. So before I turn it over to him, I do want to share a little bit about the program itself, just give a little bit of an overview of what to expect in terms of the format and some next steps in the admissions process after today's session. So if at any point you have any questions as we're going through the presentation, please feel free to type those questions into the Q&A box. I did also receive some questions from some of you through the registration page, so thank you all for submitting those. We will kind of answer some of those questions along the way, but again, please feel free to type those questions into that Q&A box and we'll answer those as we go. So let's go ahead and get started. The MSBAi program is a one-year part-time program designed for full-time working professionals. So the vast majority of our students work full-time while attending this program. So over the course of that one-year timeframe, our students will attend 6 in-person modules that take place at NYU Stern and in a rotating global location. So for the class of 2026, which is the class that we're currently accepting applications for, that a global location is Abu Dhabi. So over the course of that 1 year, students will attend in total, about 5 weeks of class time. And so there is some time away from the office that's needed during that time. And we will talk a little bit about what that schedule looks like on the next slide. But outside of these in-person modules, students will also complete about 25 hours of asynchronous work in between each of the modules as well. So there is some independent work that is also included in addition to those in-person modules. And then at the end of the program, our students earn an MS in Business Analytics and AI. And the program is excited to share that the program name has been updated to include that MS in Business Analytics and AI. So previously the degree was MS in Business Analytics, and that AI component was added to the program name to reflect a lot of the curriculum offerings that were already being integrated within the program. And this is something as well that you'll hear a little bit more about shortly. So moving forward, kind of just talking a bit about the schedule of the MS in Business Analytics and AI program. Here you can see the schedule for the class of 2026. So as I mentioned, there are 6 modules that students attend over the course of that 1 year. You can see that these modules are broken out over 2 different calendar years as well. So some of these modules will take place in 2025 and some will take place in 2026. And we find that this helps our students to be able to balance that time needed away from the office with the time needed to attend the program. So in between these in-person module sessions, that's where you're going to have a few months off, meaning that you're not physically in class, but you're still going to be engaged with the program through online readings or assignments, either to integrate the learnings of a previous session or to get ready for the next upcoming session. And again, we estimate that that work is about 25 hours of work per week. And all of that work is asynchronous, so no online classes associated with this program. Everything that you're going to be doing is either going to be in person during each of those modules, or you're going to be doing that independent study. So next, I'd like to just talk through a little bit about what to expect from the admissions process as well. I did receive quite a few questions about the admissions criteria for this program, so I do want to talk about that before we dive into some of the logistics around the admissions process. So in order to be eligible for the MSBAi program, you must have some form of full-time professional work experience. So this does not include internships or fellowships. So this must be post-baccalaureate after you graduated with your undergrad degree. You must have a completed bachelor's degree with a strong GPA and some form of demonstrated quantitative preparedness. And this can come from a combination of a few different channels. So any previous academic experience you've pursued, any professional experience you've picked up through that full-time experience, and any relevant certifications that you may have. And we do encourage you to include those certifications on your resume so that the admissions committee is aware and can see that. So in terms of the admissions process itself, this is broken down into 2 steps, the informational stage and the application stage. So as part of the informational stage, that's part of what this webinar is for, is just learning a little bit more about the program through information sessions such as this. In addition to that, I do want to note that the admissions committee does also offer one-on-one informational calls that you can schedule with a member of the admissions committee. So if you do have questions related to your individual candidacy, if you're not sure if you meet the criteria for this program, I would highly recommend that you schedule that one-on-one informational call. And like I said, it's an opportunity to sit down with a member of the admissions committee and discuss your background and your goals for pursuing the program. So in order to sign up for that informational call, you must submit the preliminary information form, which is on our website. And I will include a link to that later on in the presentation as well. So through this form, you will submit your resume, which the admissions committee will review and share some feedback on and let you know whether you are a good fit for the program and are able to move forward based on our admissions criteria. So once you feel comfortable about moving forward with your application to the program, you can proceed to the online application portal. And on that portal, you will be asked to submit the following items, which you can see listed here. So we will ask for your updated resume, one essay, your official transcripts in English, which must be sent from your Institute of Higher Learning directly. So that will need to be sent directly to our office. One letter of recommendation, which should come from your current manager or supervisor, the photo page of your passport, and the application fee. So you will note that the GMAT and GRE are generally not required on the initial application. And then once the admissions committee has had a chance to review your application, they will conduct that initial review. And if they feel positively about your candidacy, they will reach out to schedule a final selection interview, which is the final step in the admissions process for this program. So as I mentioned, we're currently accepting applications for the MSBAi class of 2026, which begins May of 2025. And our next application deadline is coming up on January 10th, 2025. So I did receive a couple questions as well just about the deadline. So I do just want to clarify, we did have a November 1st deadline pass early in November, but we are still actively accepting applications for the class of 2026. And we do accept applications on a rolling basis for this program. So from the date that you submit your application, we will immediately begin processing your application, and you will receive a decision from us in about 3 to 4 weeks from that date that you submit. So that means we do have a little bit of time before that January 10th deadline. So if you do have those application materials together, if you have that ready, no need to wait until January 10th to hit submit on that application. You can go ahead and submit that, and we will get that process started for you. So again, moving forward with the admissions process for this program, you can either continue to learn more about the program by scheduling that one-on-one informational call, and the preliminary information form link can be found directly if you scan the QR code on the screen here. It will take you directly to that form, or you can proceed directly to the formal online application. And I will follow up later today so that you have both of those links as well by email. But if you do have any questions about the program or the admissions process, please feel free to reach out and contact us. We're very easily accessible by email or by phone, and you can find our contact information on the screen here. So at this point, that is everything that I needed to go over for the program. So I will, at this point, I turn it over to Professor Anindya Ghose. So I will ask you to just introduce yourself. I'll stop sharing my screen, and you can take the reins from here.
Awesome. Thank you, Lauren. Can you see my screen?
Not yet. Can you? I did just stop sharing. Are you able to share now?
Let me start one more time. It's showing sharing. Let's see. Okay. Can you check now?
I think we can see it. Yep, we can see it. Perfect.
Right.
Thank you.
All right, welcome everyone. So what I'd like to do today is, I guess, a couple of things. One is I want to sort of talk to you a little bit about the program itself and why sort of the focus on AI and how we sort of, ended up at this point over the last few years. I'll tell you about myself, my own professional sort of background and history in the AI space. And then we'll talk more about some of the details in the curriculum itself, how, what are the courses, what are the skill sets, what are people looking for, that sort of thing, okay? So let me start by saying that, maybe most of you know this already, but clearly AI has begun to change the world. But what is interesting is that, there are very competing narratives about AI itself, right? So One narrative is that AI will lead to dystopia. Dystopia, essentially, this is a very, sort of a glass half empty story, very negative, fear mongering about job losses and discrimination and unfairness and, the robots taking over the world, that sort of thing. The other part of the story is that it's also extreme, but on the other side, which is that AI will become lead us to utopia, which is, a lot of prosperity, a lot of leisure, a lot of longevity, almost like a nirvana, right? I think the problem, the reason we have these two extreme narrative is that, unlike prior general purpose technologies like electricity and basic computing, right? AI is a lot more complex, it's a lot more layered, and it's fundamentally intangible, right? What do we mean by that? What we mean is with electricity, when you switch on or off a bulb, you can see that what the impact of electricity is. Either you get light or you don't. When you switch on or off a computer, you can see the effect of computing, but you cannot see AI, right? So because you can't see AI, you don't get to see what happens when it's switched on and off, right? And because it's intangible and more complex, I have seen very extreme narratives about AI. And so my background, I'll tell you more about that in a second, but I've been in the space for more than 20 years. And I worked with more than, I don't know, 50 companies at this point in more than a dozen industries. And I would say in all 5 continents, I've covered a good amount of geography as well in my experience. And I think what the reality is clearly in the middle. While we're not dismissive of the negatives, what is reality is that there's been a tremendous amount of positive impact that AI has already done. Okay? And that led me and another professor, Ravi Bapna, who you will meet if you join the program. He also teaches in the program. The two of us wrote a book which came out recently, in fact, last month. The reason I'm talking about this book is the most recent curriculum in this program is actually shaped based on various chapters in the book. Okay. And the reason I did that is I wanted to have skin in the game. So you know that I'm actually practicing what I'm preaching. And it's not just all hot air. Okay, let me tell you about myself. I have many different hats. I'm obviously a professor. I've been at the Stern School for almost 20 years. Most of the time I was here at NYU, but I've also been a professor at the Wharton School in Pennsylvania. During my career as an academic, in addition to running the MSBAi program, I also wrote a couple of books. The first book was called TAP, Unlocking the Mobile Economy, which did well, got translated into multiple languages. And the second book is this one called Thrive, that's on AI. I spend a lot of my time helping companies in a variety of different capacities. The most prevalent of them is I often am called to testify in some of the most high profile antitrust, merger, acquisition, legal cases. So for example, as you might know, the US government and the European government has been trying to break up Google and Meta and Apple and these kind of companies. So I am actually involved in those global lawsuits as an expert witness. In addition to that work, I also help companies from Fortune 100, Fortune 500 companies with all kinds of data science consulting in AI and statistics and prediction and so on. And lastly, many CEOs around the world have sought me out as an executive coach for their for a variety of like digital and technology implementation projects in at least 4 continents. And the third bucket where I spend a lot of time is as an investor, board member, advisor to venture capital funds, internet startups, and even public companies. And what you see on the screen are some of these examples. It's a mix of venture capital funds and startups in different countries. In terms of my background, this is a selective list of almost 50 companies that I've helped in the last almost 2 decades now, walking them through a wide variety of analytics and AI and data science projects in various capacities. Some, as you can recognize, are pretty large companies. Some are smaller companies, and they have a pretty wide geographic spread from North America to South America to Africa, Europe, and Asia. So with that being said, what did I learn? People often ask me that you've helped almost 50 companies. What have you learned from them? I think my biggest learning was that despite all of the advances in computation complexity and horsepower, less than 1% of data is being used by these companies for decision making. Okay? And when Ravi and I wrote this book, we realized we also wanted to investigate why. What is the reason that even the fact that there's a lot more data, few companies are actually using more than 1%. We identified three reasons. First is there's a lot of inertia to change. Many senior managers are reluctant to change the way they have been doing things. Second, there's actually true ignorance that people do not recognize the power of AI. And I think that's where this program is incredibly going to be helpful in making you keeping you at the forefront of business AI skill sets. So you end up after a year with the most cutting edge skill sets from the best professors in the world teaching in this program. So we hope to get rid of the second I, which is ignorance. And I think the third is imagination. A lot of CEOs I work with do not, because they're ignorant of the possibilities of AI, they cannot imagine the upside of AI. Okay. So here where things stand, right? So as I said, AI is a general purpose technology, and if you plot the different industries, and maybe some of you are already working in some of these industries, you can see exactly where the gains from AI are likely to come as a percentage of total analytics. And at this point, we are still sort of scratching the tip of the iceberg. Other than a handful of industries on the right, like travel and logistics and oil and gas, most of the gains from AI are still in the 20 to 30% range. That means there's a lot more that can be extracted. And this is where this program is going to make a difference. It has made a difference in many people's careers. But depending on where you want to end up, we see as a graduate of the program, we see you as being sort of leading the charge, in your industry, in your company. Okay, so with that being said, one final point I want to make before I talk about the structure of the program is how we got to this program curriculum. Okay. And so, like Lauren was saying, I've been involved in this program from the very beginning in some meaningful capacity. And in the last 7 to 8 years, as I started taking a more hands-on role in shaping the curriculum of this program, I sort of kept one question in mind. And the question that I kept in mind while I was thinking about the courses and the curriculum was, what does it take for leaders in the corporate world to adopt AI? And the answer that I've realized now after 20 years of helping these companies is that, all human beings, irrespective of background and intelligence, skill sets, and educational degrees, we all have one similar limitation. Okay? And that is what Polanyi, the great philosopher, talked about, which is all of us, we can actually articulate less than we actually know. Okay? In other words, Polanyi said that human beings, we're not very good at articulating the very rules that we use to make decisions. And so to give some examples, all of us, again, as I said, I worked with many different individuals in many different countries. So despite their eclectic backgrounds, the common thread was we have cognitive challenges in multidimensional thinking. There are some limitations of tacit knowledge that we often have to encounter. We're also not very good at counterfactual thinking. And lastly, we are also not very good at combinatorial thinking. Okay? So these are the four common human limitations. And that's when I was thinking about the program curriculum. It was pretty clear to us that, look, the skill set that we have to provide our graduates have to address these four human limitations. Okay? And we have to do this in a way where man and machine in combination can take care of these limitations. Because it's not going to be possible for a human being to do this, but a human being in combination with an algorithm and AI can do this. Okay. And so that was sort of the background behind how we started thinking about the curriculum. Okay, so that brings me to sort of the last point, the sort of last set of issues I want to talk about. What is how do I take a company from 0 to 100 when it comes to the AI path, right? So the most common question I would get these days, at least over the last 2 years, ever since ChatGPT was introduced, was how do I make my company an AI organization? And that's where our curriculum comes in really handy. Okay, so the way we have devised this curriculum, before I get into the details, I'll give you the big picture, is there are three broad sets of skills you will be learning. The first set of skill is, as you can see over here, the fundamental bottom pillar is data engineering. And here's when I tell companies, look, you have to invest a lot of time and resources in data engineering. Okay? So what is data engineering? Well, the reality is that the vast majority of data sets that are generated within companies tend to be very dirty. They tend to have a lot of issues. They are not clean, they're not properly aggregated, they're not well integrated. They require several kinds of transformation to maybe address missing variables, missing observations, unformatted data. And so the bottom pillar is necessary for companies to essentially clean your data sets, okay? And why you want to clean your data sets is because in the world of algorithms, garbage in, garbage out is a very real phenomena. And so if you haven't spent enough time cleaning up the data set that is being fed into the algorithm, then the inferences that you can make from the output are not going to make much sense, and they're not going to be very relevant or useful. Okay? And so my first piece of advice to companies is please make sure that you spend at least 70% of your resources and time in the data engineering pillar, okay, which is this bottom foundational pillar. Now, once you have spent enough time cleaning up your, making the foundation for analysis, then you get into the four pillars. This is the second set of skills. And this is what we teach in our curriculum. We have courses that teach you descriptive AI. Descriptive AI essentially means explaining what has happened so far. The second set of skills we teach is predictive AI. Predictive AI means answering the question, what will happen next? Okay. The third set of skills is causal AI or causal inference. Here we help you understand how to extract the reasons why something has happened. Okay. And finally, we help you understand prescriptive AI, which is how should a company respond. Okay. So if you're paying attention, you'll note that each of these pillars is essentially asking a fundamentally different question. But when you cover all four, then you can hit the ground running because now you covered all four possibilities. Okay, so the first question is, tell me what has happened in this company so far, like in our markets. Next question is, what will happen next? The third question is, why did something happen? And the fourth question is, what should we do about it? Okay. So this is also how we have structured this program so that the curriculum reflects these fundamental skill sets in AI. And for each of these skill sets, we have multiple courses. I try to make sure that there's at least a couple of courses hitting on the same spot during the curriculum. We have 17 courses, which I'll talk about, but you want to make sure that at least there are two courses in each bucket. Okay, so that's when you are good to go with analysis. And then the final set of skills would be the storytelling skills, the professional skills, the skills that will make you leaders. That includes both storytelling and also being able to communicate, how do you handle the ethics of AI? How do you handle the fairness of AI and all that, okay? So this is where with generative AI being a real, powerful weapon, we spend time training you with generative AI, but we also spend time training you on storytelling skills. So that being said, I think I also like to summarize the previous slide in the following way. And just as an aside, I'm also a trained mountaineer. So in a previous life, I did a number of certification courses in high altitude mountaineering. I've climbed in pretty much every big mountain range in the world, including the Himalayas and the Andes and the Alps. I see strong parallels in my own journey in mountaineering and as an AI, data scientist. And so the summary takeaway is that the hardest part, this is by the way, this is Mount Everest. The hardest part of climbing Mount Everest, you may know this already, is actually not at the top, is actually in the bottom. Okay, and what I say that is there is something called the Khumbu Icefall, which is a very technical part of the entire Everest climb. And I have, climbed this mountain, so I'm aware of, the challenges. Obviously, as you go up, there's other challenges that you face, but the biggest challenge you face is actually over here, which is why I equate crossing the Kumbu icefall with data engineering. Because remember, I told you that it is an incredibly difficult and yet a notoriously important problem to solve. All right, so the last thing I'll say is, what are you guys going to be looking forward if you were to join us in this program? I think that, there's obviously a lot of good things we can offer, but fundamentally, I keep hearing the following, I guess, four things from people. First, a lot of folks would come and say, like, we really want to, understand both the technical and the strategic aspects of AI. I think, in today's world, it's hard to imagine any career that will not be influenced, if not disrupted by AI, right? And so I think you want to be on top of the game. So you want to be exposed to that sort of both technical and strategic skill sets. Some people who've had some experience also want to leverage this program to craft and design the AI strategy. So they might be a little more senior. Like the first skill set is typically for more younger folks, often fresh out of undergrad, people in their early 20s. The second one might be people have some experience, maybe 5 years or more, sometimes even 10 years, and they want to actually design the AI strategies. So they're maybe more mid-level or senior level. I think then there's also a separate set of folks who don't necessarily see themselves as leaders, but they see themselves as enablers of leaders. So their focus is really more on the technical aspects of AI. And then finally, then once you have all of this, based on where you're in the spectrum, you may also want to just take it to the very top level, at the C-suite level, and pursue careers at the intersection of business and tech. The combination of business AI process works in an iterative manner. So this is really important that, harnessing the power of AI does not necessarily mean, or business analytics doesn't mean that you can accomplish all your goals in one day. This is a journey. It's a long journey. So you should be ready for investing time and staying patient. Because the way this journey unfolds is you're basically looking at, going through this iterative cyclical journey, because you have access to data, you're building models, you're getting the results, you're changing your strategies based on that, and that generates new data, and then you go over the cycle one more time. Okay, so that this is really important for you to understand that if you want to pursue a career in analytics or business analytics or AI, you have to be really ready and embrace the iteration of this journey. Okay, it's gonna take time. All right. So, and the last slide I want to say is, what does the curriculum look like? As Lauren mentioned, we have 6 modules. The last module is, of course, the capstone project. But the first 5 modules is where we systematically walk you through that house of AI I talked about. So data engineering, descriptive, prediction, causal, and prescriptive, and then finally the storytelling. We balance both the methodological courses as well as the applied courses. As I said, some people, they are really more interested in the technical courses. Some people are more interested in the business applications, and some are interested in both, right? So I think there is space in the world for all three. So that's really important for you to know that you do not need to be, the master of all three. You can be the jack of all three and the master of one. Different people self-select into different, domains based on, if you see yourself as a leader, as a storyteller, you'll choose one path. If you see yourself as a technical expert with data science as your, guiding path, you'll choose something else, right? But the way we've designed this curriculum lets you choose that path. And most likely you will know that, towards the end of the program, you'll know like what would be the right path. Okay, so I think that was it, Lauren. I think we're gonna stop sharing, or maybe I'll, keep the slide, but we should be ready to take any questions.
Great. Well, thank you so much. And yes, I have been answering just a couple of that have come through. Some of these have been a little bit more admissions related. So I did just go ahead and answer those quickly. I am going to start with some of the questions that came through the registration page. But as we do have some time, so please, anybody who's tuning in, if you do have some questions for Professor Ghose, please feel free to type those in, and we're happy to take questions at this point. So the first question that came through was, how does the program approach working with students that are looking to make a career transition through this degree and don't have a STEM undergraduate background?
Yeah, so we do get every year we do get enough applications from people who don't have a STEM background. The good news is a STEM background is actually not a requirement. It's a nice to have, it's not a must have. And that's also how we have designed the curriculum that if you have had, not much of an experience in programming quantitative sciences, um, we'll sort of like, ease you in. You will have to put more effort than, let's say, someone who has an engineering background, but it's something that is achievable, it's feasible. And so we typically advise, people to set aside like something like 25 to 30 hours a week for this program. If you've had absolutely zero STEM experience, you might have to increase that by another 5 or 10 hours, but it's something that is a feasible, achievable process because we do this every year, and every year we have graduates who have zero STEM backgrounds.
Absolutely. And just to echo that from the admissions committee standpoint, we have found that candidates who have more of a limited technical background are able to pursue free online courses, things like Coursera, things like that can also help to kind of prepare you for that start.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So another kind of, I will combine kind of a few questions that I received, but some questions that I got were kind of about certain roles that students typically pursue after the program. So perhaps you could speak to that, of certain trends that you're seeing from our.
Yeah, so surely. I mean, I think, in the early years, it was more of a traditional business analytics role, data science role. I think with the advent of AI in business and the new skills that we are offering, it broadens the possibilities. So you can apply in a wide variety of roles, like product management is a very common role. Consulting is obviously super, super common. Going into a startup world where you have multiple hats. So we basically get to see graduates picking a wide variety of paths and here's why, right? AI now is going to, as I said, influence and disrupt every single domain, every single industry. So there's going to be no industry, no domain that is not going to be impacted, which is why the possibilities after graduating from this program are kind of limited only by your imagination, right? So I think that's important, and also some relevant is conversation about skill sets. As I said, our program equips you with all the relevant skill sets in business AI, right? Um, in business AI, and so I think you will then have a choice of using the usual paths of networking with recruiters and alumni. You should be able to essentially crack any industry. How much you succeed is generally up to the individual, right? Are you willing to invest time outside of the program? For example, networking is a big part of how America works, so you have to do all of that.
Yeah, that's some great advice, I think, just kind of in how to kind of leverage those resources available through the program for sure.
Yeah.
So I will say that overall, so we did receive a couple of questions that do appear to be very specific to individual candidacies, kind of some backgrounds of, if I have this type of background, am I eligible for the program? So overall, I would say to everyone tuning in, if you do have questions, again, just kind of about your individual background, definitely feel free to reach out to the admissions committee. I would encourage you in those instances to set up that one-on-one informational call, because I think that it's a great opportunity just to be able to talk through what your goals are for the program. But one question that did come through that I thought was kind of interesting is somebody who said that they just started their own consulting firm. They have 10 years of experience in strategic planning, brand management, and portfolio management, looking to transition into tech and AI, but didn't include any doesn't really have any experience in programming, basically, is the question. So kind of wondering if you have feedback on that of kind of how to leverage the program to make that transition.
Yeah, so I think again, I know we have a total of 17 courses. I would say, maybe 25%, 4 of them will involve some meaningful level of programming because you have to learn big data, you have to learn, databases, cleaning databases like SQL, query, Python notebooks. You'll get exposed to at least 3 or 4 courses. But again, our professors, they are seasoned veterans. Like they understand that not everybody has the same background. So the curriculum is shaped and the assignments are also designed, keeping in mind that not everybody will have a programming background. Some professors offer assignments in groups. Like in my course, I typically offer group assignment because I know that not everybody has the same set of skills. And the same goes for, I would say, beyond programming, just the experience part, right? So we get a lot of folks with limited experience, folks with more experience, and I generally see a good amount of synergy, in the class based on that, right? So for some of the more quantitative or technical courses, the senior folks would actually rely more on the junior people. Whereas for some of the more, experiential learning that also happens, the junior folks will rely on the senior people. So I generally see that mutual symbiotic synergy, which, typically works well.
Yeah, and I think that's a great kind of to that point, kind of great example of how that cohort-based experience is really important to the program, and kind of the way that this program is structured. Our students are going to be in the same room together, taking those classes together, and so you do really get to know not only for networking purposes, but you get to know each other's professional backgrounds too. So that's great.
And we mix it up with both capstone groups having this combination of different age and skills, but also the study groups that Anika designs, so that we try to take into account that diversity.
Yeah, and that does actually lead to a question that came through about the capstones. Somebody asked, when does the capstone start, and is it earlier in the program? So maybe just kind of if you could provide just like an overview of what to expect from the capstone project.
Yeah, so the capstone is one of the most exciting parts of this program. It starts pretty much from the first module in the following sense that what happens at the capstone, let me take a step back, is students form groups of 4, 5, or 5 to 6, typically 5. And these are groups that work with a single company or an organization in solving a real world problem using the skill set that they're learning from the program. So this is not some made up context, a made up problem, artificial. This is all real world. Um, and students bring their own, they're supposed to bring their own connections, from companies into the capstone. In other words, we don't tell you what capstone to choose. You have complete flexibility and liberty on whichever company you want to do a capstone with, based on current or prior connections and so on. And then once the project starts, we appoint a faculty advisor from the program to you. The advisor meets you at least once a month, sometimes twice a month. They handhold you and guide you through this process. And then Mike Pinot and I, we are also the capstone co-director. So we will be meeting you in every module to give you even more feedback in addition to your faculty advisor feedback. When you come in May, you will essentially propose some ideas, and then when you come back in June, that's when you will finalize your capstone company, capstone project, and so on.
And we did get a kind of possibly leading into this. You touched upon this a little bit earlier, but we have gotten a couple of questions just related to if you could speak to kind of the diversity within the classroom. So kind of the types of professional backgrounds students usually come with. So maybe if you could elaborate on that a little.
So I'd say, I think like the start with work experience is a big range from, I don't know, like 1 or 2 years all the way to, 10 plus years. In terms of backgrounds and industries, again, I think we used to get people from, financial services, tech, big Silicon Valley consulting, CPG, retail, market research. We've even got like oil and gas, like over the time, we've basically gotten people from every industry. So this should not be a big surprise because find me one industry where AI is not influencing it. Then I'll say that industry is maybe not relevant. But find me one. I'll be waiting.
And so another question that came through, with exponential acceleration and in the pace of AI, how would the curriculum keep pace and adapt with real world developments?
Yeah, it's a good question. I'd say the way I designed the program is, I guess, the way to think about AI is going to be a bunch of concepts and skill sets with wrappers around it. Okay, so this may not make much sense to you, but having done this for 20 years, it makes sense to me. We focus on training you on the concepts, but not on the wrappers, because wrappers will keep changing every 3 months. 2 years ago it was ChatGPT 2, then it was 3.5, then 4, right? Generative AI is changing by literally by the week, right? So we are not we don't really care about the wrappers. We care about the skill sets and the concepts. So our professors and the courses will focus on that. That's how we don't worry about what is the next new cool, toy, because that's just a wrapper. We focus on the concepts.
And just kind of scrolling through some of the questions. A couple of these are a little bit more admissions related, so I'm just going to answer some of these
Sure.
live. So one question that came through, could someone with a 3-year undergraduate degree and a professional qualification with a CPA and CFA apply to the program? So again, going back to, I would just want to encourage you to submit your resume through the preliminary information form, just so that we can kind of review your professional background in greater detail. But generally, yes, I would say that so somebody with that type of background would be eligible to apply. But again, anybody who has specific questions like that, I would recommend submitting your resume through the preliminary information form. And again, we are always happy to kind of have those conversations with you and have a member of the admissions committee review your background. Another question that came through is, if I happen to miss one of the in-person classes at a location, can a student join virtually? So I do just want to stress that all of the modules are requirements to graduate from the program. So attendance is mandatory. In situations like that, if something were to come up, that would be handled on a case-by-case basis with the student services team. But generally, just to kind of keep that in mind, that you do need to attend each of those in-person modules. So somebody asked just about the required coursework for said that they just wanted some clarification on how much time is needed to complete the coursework when you're not physically in class. So typically that work is about, we estimate about 25 hours of work per week when you're not physically in class. Kind of as we've been discussing, this may depend on your previous experience, kind of what you are bringing to the classroom. So some courses you may need to spend a little bit more time on, so you may need to adjust that, maybe add 5 hours a week. Some courses that come a little bit more easier to you, it may be a little less. So kind of to keep that in mind. And another question come through, do current students have to leave their jobs to be a part of this program? So no, the vast majority of our students do work full-time while attending the program. So you can very easily attend each of those in-person modules. They take place over the course of 1 week. And the schedule, I shared it earlier, can be found on our website. So for the class of 2026, you can find that broken out on our website. As I mentioned earlier, these modules are broken out over 2 different calendar years as well. So we do find that helps our students to be able to balance time needed away from the office with the time needed to attend the program. Professor Ghose, another question that came through is kind of speaking, I think, based off of what you were saying earlier, just about how some of our students are a little bit more junior within their career, some are more experienced. Someone asked, does that create challenges in the learning environment? Is that ever something that comes up in the cohort?
Not to my knowledge. Like I haven't seen or heard any particular challenge that comes from the mix. And if anything, I've seen the other way around, which is that people appreciate the strengths and relative weakness from each side. In my opinion, when if you're someone with a lot of experience, that means you've been away from the school and classroom for many, many years. It's going to be, there may be some challenges in some of the, let's say, programming quantitative courses. But if you pair up with someone who's fresh, he or she is most likely going to be able to do that much faster and teach you as well. So that's the benefit of pairing up based on different skill sets and experiences. Whereas what you bring to the table with someone who's very senior is you bring a lot of experience, and the younger folks have very little experience, and they're always looking to hear, contextualize a problem based on your experience. So I generally find that as a big strength, as opposed to any sort of handicap. Now, like everything else in life, the individuals, you dictate your own path, right? So you should be, flexible and open-minded that learning accrues from both the young and to the old and the old to the young, relatively speaking.
And another question that came through, in our organization, we already have an establishment data engineering and AI technical process, but today we have to tackle how to translate that into real economic gain to our clients. Do you think that this program makes sense for me in that case?
I would say so. Yeah, I mean, I couldn't answer the question without knowing what company or what position you are in, but we generally do emphasize sort of this what I call translation, which is not just the infrastructure. We're not really much of an infrastructure building program, but we're more of a business AI program, which means that we care more about translating the gains from adopting and embracing business AI.
And a couple more questions that came through. Just so somebody asked if this program is STEM designated and whether that qualifies for OPT after the program ends. So do you just want to note that yes, so the program is STEM designated based on the content that is provided through the program itself. However, due to the modular based structure of this program, because it is part-time, the program does not qualify for OPT after graduation. So do you just want to make that clear? If you do have further questions on that, please feel free to reach out to our office. Happy to kind of clarify the visa process, things like that for you. Generally, most students will apply for the F1 visa, and that will cover will cover those New York-based modules for this program.
Mhm. I think to Brittany's question about changing jobs and getting a letter from the previous boss, I'm not in admission, but I'd say it's totally fine. I think Lauren, you
Absolutely.
can speak to that.
Absolutely, yes. So in the case, for example, if you just switch jobs in that case, or if for some reason you cannot get a letter of recommendation from your current supervisor, we can absolutely accept a recommendation from a previous supervisor. We do just ask in those instances that you reach out to our office so that we're aware of your case, so that we are aware of those circumstances. So please feel free to, again, you can reach us at msbai@stern.nyu.edu. Happy to kind of have those further conversations just so we can talk more in detail about that. But yes, generally that is fine for anybody in that situation. And yes, just in terms of, so one question came through just asking if if the recording will be provided. So yes, absolutely. So we will be sending this around to anybody who attended today. So you will have that for review. We are still taking some, so we do have a little bit more time. So I do just want to encourage you all, if you do have some questions, to type those into the Q&A box. I will go back to, again, we did have some that kind of came through the registration page. Just give me 1 second. I lost my screen here, but. Sorry about that. So one question that came through a couple of times is asking just if somebody is pursuing a certification prior to the start of the program and they have some time kind of before now and the start of May 2025, are there any types of certifications that you would recommend prior to the start of the program?
Mm, No, nothing is really required. I think if you want to pick something up in terms of skill sets, I would say focus on any skills, any courses or certifications in sort of the four pillars that I mentioned, which is either predictive AI or causal inference or prescriptive AI or descriptive AI. Again, it's not necessary, but it's not a bad idea to, especially if you don't have any background at all, to start looking through some courses in Coursera. Um, Here's something I'll say, like, data science is not rocket science, right? I've done this for 20 years. I've done this for 50 plus companies. It's not rocket science. What matters in data science is, are you willing to, put in the effort and the time and burn the midnight oil, right? So success in data science and AI is highly, highly correlated with the amount of time and investment you put in. So if you are one of those folks who has a very strong work ethic, you're ambitious, you're driven, you're resilient, you're gritty, you're going to be fine. Okay. But if you are looking for, let me just check off some boxes and take the path of least resistance, then AI is not for you. So you have to be very honest about this to yourself because it's a lot of money. You don't want to spend this kind of money and then realize that, I don't have those other skill sets. So you have to be basically, we will train you with the intellectual stuff, but you have to put in a lot of effort on your own to be able to take it from the level where you set you up for and then, propel forward.
And so another question that's coming through the chat, do you see the topics being taught in being applicable on an international sense, or is the curriculum more US centric? Oh, you are muted. There you go.
Sorry, I was going to say, AI is a global phenomenon. There's nothing US about AI. And because we're a business AI program, I would say obviously the capstone projects tend to be primarily US focused because, now that you're here, most students try to connect with companies from the US. But that's it, over the years, we've had capstone projects from the Middle East, from Singapore, from China, from Australia, from India, from South America. So I think there's a fair amount of global flavor to the capstone projects, but there's nothing about the curriculum that is, geography specific because we teach the skills and the methodologies and the concepts which are agnostic to geography.
And another question that came through, in your experience, how does AI apply to healthcare? What have consultants looked to you for in this area specifically?
Yeah, so in fact, this year we have one capstone projects applying AI in healthcare for optimization purposes. Essentially, they are automating a lot of the electronic medical records and optimizing the workflows and the best practices. And then as a consequence of all of the AI implementation, they're trying to quantify the gains to the hospital. For example, can they identify sources of inefficiency after deploying AI and then reduce cost or increase revenues or both, right? Ideally, you want to both increase revenues or reduce costs. Sometimes one works, the other doesn't work. So we do have, Josh is one of the students leading that capstone project with Mount Sinai, which is a large healthcare hospital system here in the US.
And another question that just came through, asking, I can take this one from the admissions side. Do you help with job hunting before graduation? So I do just want to speak to the available kind of student services and alumni resources that are available to students. So just to clarify, this program is not, there are no kind of placement programs associated with MSBAi. The resources that are available to our students, because our students are coming into the program with our students are a little bit more experienced, are coming in a little bit more a senior and have that full-time work experience under their belt. Our students are usually coming into the program with very tailored goals in mind. So because of that, the students services that are available to our students can be taken advantage of through the Stearns Career Office. So there is a team within that office that is specifically designed to help students as they're transitioning into a new career. So this is an office that students and alumni have access to on a lifelong basis. So even after graduation, if you are navigating a transition within your career, you can come to this office and they will help you with resume reviews, mock interview opportunities, sitting down with you just to kind of talk through what it is that you're looking to pursue. So that service as well is something that you will be introduced to when you are a student as a student within this program. If you do have any further questions about alumni resources, happy to answer them here. But I will note as well that this is another topic that we do get into quite a bit in our regular virtual information sessions with the admissions committee. So I will note as well that we have one coming up on December 9th. So just to make a note of that, if anybody is interested in kind of answering some more of those questions, we can dive into that a little bit deeper then as well. All right, so another question, we do have a few more minutes left before we have to wrap up, but another question that had come through the registration page was just asking if you could expand on what it is you think that makes this program at NYU Stern stand out from other business analytics programs.
I would probably just emphasize that how we are differentiated. The main point of difference is ours is not a full-time program. It was intentionally designed so that people's opportunity costs are lower. When you have to quit the job and join a program full-time, there is a big opportunity cost. Whereas when you're already working and you don't have to quit the job, you incur a far lower opportunity cost because you can still maintain your livelihood. That would be the first thing. I think in addition, we tend to emphasize, we were always the leader, and you can ask any other program director of MSBA programs in the country that NYU was typically considered a leader in shaping the best practices in this curriculum. And part of that is I sort of, thank all the companies who I worked with who've taught me a lot of things. Most academics are ivory tower academics. They do research, but they don't do real work in the real world. For me, it's been the other way around. I don't get, enough gratification from just publications. I want to help these companies actually implement whatever we find. And so I think whatever learnings I was able to get from working with all these companies in different countries is what's helped me shape this curriculum, which is not the case for other MSBA programs. And I think the third thing is we do have one global module, which tends to be the favorite for many students because many folks have never traveled to the Middle East, for instance, and they get a lot of they're often blown away by how advanced the state of affairs there is in Abu Dhabi compared to even the U.S. So I think those are the three things that are unique to us.
And that actually does answer a question that came through about what can we expect from the module in Abu Dhabi. I don't know if you want to kind of add on that if there's something you want.
Yeah, so I think the Abu Dhabi module is the last module. We teach modern AI in Abu Dhabi. We teach generative AI and modern AI. We also teach causal machine learning with recommender systems. Recommender systems are there everywhere. Amazon, Netflix, Spotify, like think of anything on the internet. There's a recommender system that is helping consumers find their way. So we teach that. We also teach revenue management. Hospitality industry, hotels, restaurants, airlines. Everybody needs revenue management skills. So we teach all of that. And then obviously there's the pre-final penultimate capstone presentation. We also compare that with at least one company visit to a local UAE company, sometimes combined with one guest speaker, but we try to do one company visit. And then there's the fun part, which is we do the desert safari, which is amazing. You get to do dune bashing and all the fun stuff in the real Sahara Desert.
Absolutely. Yeah. And kind of just keeping an eye on time, we had one question come through asking just if this is more admissions focused, asking if there's anything that candidates should highlight in their essays. So I will speak to that in the sense that I think that the essays are a really great space to speak to the admissions committee and highlight something that isn't evident in the other components of your application. So we will see your resume through your professional experience there. We'll take a look at your transcripts through those that you submit. But the essays are a great place to really highlight what it is that you're looking to gain from the program and what you want to do long-term in your career, how you feel that this program can help you achieve that. So I would say that those are the two main things, but really anything that you would say that you think is not evident in the other components of your application that you want the admissions committee to be aware of. And kind of with that, I would say that maybe just to kind of wrap up, maybe if you could expand on if there's just any advice that you could give to our candidates, if there's kind of some words of wisdom you could share.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I would say here's what I feel very confident about. I feel confident that we are undoubtedly the best business AI program in the world. It is a combination of both my own personal expertise and experience, but also because the professors, the other 16 professors, are truly world class. We select the professors based on their real world experience, and most of them have a lot just like I do. So I feel very confident that we'll give you the best education. Now, what you do with that is up to you. As I said, if you do decide to join the program, start investing in connecting with alumni from day one. In fact, day zero, start networking from day zero. Spend time outside the classroom, picking up additional skills and additional things, because it is a very expensive program, and so you have to make sure that you do everything that you can so that you get a return on investment. We will give you the intellectual component, but success in career and success in finding jobs is not just based on skills and intellect. It's based on your efforts outside the classroom. So you should be ready to connect with alumni. And if you don't see yourself as a person, if you're introverted and shy and you don't like connecting with strangers, then it will be a much more challenging process.
That's excellent advice. And I want to kind of thank you, but kind of before we wrap up, just thank you so much for attending today and for sharing this advice and this information for our candidates. I think, like I said at the beginning, it's always great just to hear directly from no better person to hear from about the curriculum than the academic director. So I did one final question came through that I can take is just what scholarship opportunities are available. So do just want to note that any candidates who do apply for the program are considered for our partial merit-based scholarship awards. So you can find some more information on this. Again, these are partial amounts that are awarded at the discretion of the admissions committee. But by completing your application, you will be considered for those. So I just want to take this opportunity again to thank all of you for tuning in today, for coming to learn more about the program. If you do have any questions at all, please feel free to contact our office at msbai@stern.nyu.edu. And I will follow up later today with just those next steps for the preliminary information form and with a link to the application. So thank you, Professor Ghose, for tuning in.
Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you all, everyone, for attending today's webinar.
Yeah, all the best to you guys in your choices and careers. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.